Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful. All praise be to Allah, the Lord of the heavens and the earth, and peace and blessings be upon our beloved messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Dear brothers and sisters, I am your host Hatim al-Absalam. I salute you all with the salutation of the people of paradise. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Please join me in welcoming my distinguished guest, Sheikh Kahlan bin Nabhan al-Kharusi, the Assistant Grand Mufti of the Sultanate of Oman. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Brother Hatim, thank you very much for hosting me, and I would like also to express my salam to all our audience. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Thank you for being with us today as well, Sheikh. And we have another list of questions.
It always gives me a great pleasure, Brother Hatim, to be with you and share some of our thoughts and ideas and discuss some of religious matters that are of concern for our audience. And I pray to Allah the Almighty to guide us all to the right path and enable us to meet the concerns and answer the questions of all our audience as we could, inshallah.
The first question, Sheikh, says, my child's dentist has recommended an application of topical fluoride. This is a preventative treatment to help reduce the risk of tooth decay. That the topical fluoride application contains a trace of alcohol, ethanol. The fluoride is painted onto the teeth and is easily removed using toothbrush. Is the above mentioned dental treatment permissible?
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. All praise be to Allah, peace and blessings be upon His last messenger. The answer for this question is based upon understanding that ethanol is not forbidden in Islam. Drinking alcohol is of course forbidden, but we are talking about when we are talking about drinking alcohol, then the what is forbidden in Islam is what is known in Arabic as al-khamr. And al-khamr means that intoxicants. And this application, as it appears, it is like a gel which is applied on the teeth. And yes, it does contain ethanol, which is the compound found in alcohol, and it is the effective compound, and this is why it is called alcohol. But it is not necessarily causing the one who is using it, either drinking or applying it, to get drunk. So it is based upon this, it is not forbidden. We need always to be very careful, because people tend to think that wherever alcohol is found as a compound, as an element in a product or in a compound, then they think that it is forbidden. It is not. This is not the ruling of determining what drinks are allowed and what sort of drinks are not. If the drink is intoxicants, then in this case, yes, it is forbidden. It is alcohol. It is a forbidden alcohol, which means that it is khamr. But if this is an element found in that compound, then but it doesn't cause, it is not intoxicants, then in this case it is allowed, it is permissible. And from the question here, there is another thing, which is, as the questioner says, this is a gel applied on the teeth, and it is rinsed, and that's why it doesn't cause any harm. It doesn't even consist of any forbidden element, and even the use itself, which is the other point, as I said, the use of this application or this gel doesn't cause, it is not consumed, it is only applied on the teeth. So by all means it is allowed and it's permissible. If it contains alcohol, which is intoxicants, then the question, even if it is not consumed, the question here is on trading on this, on such materials. And the right and direct answer is it is not allowed. Whether it is allowed for necessities as a treatment, as an example, or not. This is a debatable issue, but the majority of scholars are of the opinion that even if they can be used as treatment, but it is not allowed in Islam to use intoxicants as treatment. So there must be an alternative. If it is required as I said, for a necessity, then other alternatives should be considered, but not medicines that contain intoxicants. Allah Ta'ala knows best.
Thank you, Sheikh. The next question says, if you visit the city of Makkah for many days and you want to perform Umrah each day, do you have to remove your unwanted hair each time, which is the hair from your private parts?
No, it is not a must. It is not even in this case recommended. It is recommended for the first Umrah. And the recommendation here is not for the act itself, but it is to avoid causing any inconvenience or exposing one's body to committing what is not allowed during the ihram status. Because for the person who is under the ihram status, it is not allowed for him or her to remove any of their hairs. And that's why scholars have urged those who are about to commence an Umrah or Hajj that they should remove this hair from their private parts so that it wouldn't cause them any inconvenience while they are performing their rituals of Umrah or Hajj. But if they have already done so and they are going to repeat the Umrah, and this is obviously is going to be while performing Umrah, because for performing Hajj it cannot be repeated more than once in a year, because it is determined on a particular period of time, particular places as well, but not for Umrah. It can be repeated according to the right opinion, even in the same journey made to Makkah. So in this case it's going to be meaningless to remove this hair every time the person wants to perform the Umrah, because it wouldn't be even thinkable of. So this is the answer. It is, yes, recommended for the first time, and the recommendation is for the purpose of avoiding, as I said, any inconvenience that might be caused by the hair during the performance of Umrah or Hajj. Allah Ta'ala knows best.
Thank you, Sheikh.
حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل 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 حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل.
If you have any questions for the show, send your email at k.r at oman-radio.gov.om, at k.r at oman-radio.gov.om, knowing your religion, or send SMS to 90406 to 90406. Don't forget to indicate k.r before sending your questions. And for your comments and suggestions, check out our Facebook, Knowing Your Religion. Knowing Your Religion. Knowing Your Religion.
The next question says, I made an oath to Allah to slaughter 2 bulls if I get employed. Now that I got employed, I could only afford to slaughter 1. Years have passed and now I am capable of slaughtering another 1. Have I committed a sin by delaying this oath?
Well, we should ask, the questioner here, what made him to make such an oath? We must be very careful on making such oaths or vows, particularly those which we cannot fulfill. We are free of such liabilities, but once we do made before Allah the Almighty an oath, then we must fulfill our oaths. Allah the Almighty has praised those who fulfill their oaths. He says in the Holy Quran, يُوفُونَ بِالنَّذْرِ وَيَخَافُونَ يَوْمًا كَانَ شَرُّهُ مُسْتَطِيرًا. They fulfill their oaths. When he was praising and appreciating the believers, the righteous believers. And he combined between this quality of them and that they are afraid, they do fear the day of judgment, which of course indicates the importance of fulfilling one's oath and vows. So yes, he is strongly recommended and urged to fulfill his oath. Now if he has slaughtered 1 bull, although his oath was to slaughter 2 bulls, then in this case, upon him being able to and capable of slaughtering the 2nd bull, then he must do so. So this is the answer, but it was just a piece of advice to our audience. Do not make oaths, particularly if you feel that you wouldn't be able. Yes, sometimes in a moment of anxiety or happiness, people tend to make such oaths. Although they have to understand that they can do this charity whenever they want, even without making any oaths, and they are going to be rewarded. But once there is an oath, they might bring burden upon their shoulders when they are unable to fulfill or they fail to fulfill their oaths. And this is the if we refer back to the traditions of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he has treated oaths like vows, and his tendency was not to make oaths and vows. And when he was asked by the people who made oaths, he recommended, he advised them, he ordered them to fulfill their oaths, even the ones made in the past. I can quote here an oath made by the great companion Umar bin Khattab, may Allah have mercy on him. And he made that oath when he was still a non-believer. And after embracing Islam, after a while actually, he approached Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and he asked him about his oath which he made before his Islam. And Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam answered him that he should fulfill his oath. So this is the evidence, but as I said, it was just a piece of advice for our audience to avoid making oaths, and this doesn't mean that we are going to be prevented from these kind of charities. We still can do these charities, and we still have free choices to whatever an expression of gratitude towards Allah the Almighty for His boundaries upon us that we want to show and present. And this is another gain, actually, another benefit. If we are not subject to an oath, then we can choose whatever is within our capabilities and whatever is for the interest of the society, whatever is needed most in the society, then we can do that charity, as I said, in an expression of our gratitude towards Allah the Almighty, and in this case with sincerity, of course, we are going to be highly rewarded. Allah Ta'ala knows best.
Thank you, Sheikh.
Inna lillah, inna lillah, inna ilayhi raji'un. 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 Inna lillah, inna lillah, inna ilayhi raji'un.
If you have any questions for the show, send your email at k.r@oman-radio.gov.om, at k.r@oman-radio.gov.om, knowing your religion, or send SMS to 90406 to 90406. Don't forget to indicate k.r before sending your questions. And for your comments and suggestions, check out our Facebook, Knowing Your Religion. Knowing Your Religion. Knowing Your Religion.
The next question says, is it permissible to consume elephant meat?
Well, I don't know where are we living? For a person to ask us a question. But it could be, people are traveling nowadays to different parts of the world. And I laughed because once it was raised the issue of consuming horse's meat. And it was, discussed by Muslim scholars, Muslim jurists, and then a journalist approached them and he said people cannot find horses to ride them, let alone to consume them. Now, this is a debatable issue. If we return back to the discussions about elephant meat, it has been discussed. Some scholars consider it as a wild animal, and accordingly they say that it is forbidden to consume elephant meat. Others claim that it is grass, and in this case it is like the livestock, and it can be consumed. Now in the Arabia, elephants were not found. There is, of course, the story of the Abraha, the king, the ruler of Yemen, when he was about to destroy and when he attacked Mecca, and they used elephants, and these elephants were brought from Abyssinia, the nearby, and it said that Abyssinia at that time was also ruled by Abraha. So in the Arabia, elephants were, yes, they were known, but when they were talking about food, elephants were not intended. And when Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam also, in many traditions, he was talking about what is lawful and what is unlawful, elephants were not meant And this is an evidence for those who claimed that they cannot be allowed. Well, it is difficult, for me to say what is the correct opinion. This is the debate on the issue of elephant's meat. But to avoid eating elephant meat, with no doubt, is making the person on the safe side. So this is my recommendation. Particularly, with the tendency, the world tendency, and the international care given to elephants and most animals that are about to be extinct, that we should assist on this pursuit, because it is within the general tendency of Islamic legislation. So we shouldn't support also if there are companies that are providing such meat. I think this should be under consideration when we are dealing with such matters. It is not only sufficient for us just to look at the direct evidence related to the matter, but even to the consequences. They are, as we all know, in Islamic rulings and Islamic jurisprudence, that the ends of any act must be under consideration when we are about to issue a fatwa regarding whatever action or deed people are asking about. And here I think this must be put under consideration. What are the consequences? Are we assisting such entities that are looking to preserve and look after these animals, or this is against such laws and regulations? And there's, as I said, a general tendency within Islamic teachings to put such considerations under account when we are dealing with issuing fatwas on such matters. May Allah the Almighty guide us all to the right path.
Thank you, Sheikh. The next question says, I have a housing loan from an Islamic bank, which is a long-term loan. Am I permissible to perform Hajj?
I have frequently on this program clarified that Islamic banks are not giving loans. It could be a product of financing, or it could be a lease or partnership. Anyhow, I would imagine that the question, the exact name of the product is not given correctly, but the service provided from the bank to the customer in this case makes liabilities and debts upon the customer to the bank, and that's why the customer is asking about performing Hajj under this liability. And the answer is, if there are no other means of getting rid of this debt, because it is a debt, and the paying debts is an obligatory act in Islam, and it is a priority. But if going to Hajj doesn't harm paying this debt, so in this case it is allowed for the person, for the customer, to go to Hajj, providing that the way by which he is paying the installments would not be harmed, and the institution, in this case the bank, doesn't prevent him from such a performance, because it doesn't cause their rights any damage. But if it is for a person, if he is in debt to a person, to another fellow Muslim, then in this case, as scholars have rightly put it, he should ask the permission from the person whom he is owing an amount of money. But for the schedule and well-defined debts to such an institution, particularly if they are not, if the loans are not harmed by his journey to Hajj, then in this case he is allowed to perform Hajj. But I have to also to make it clear that he should leave all the guarantees required, because this is a journey for an obligation that is only asked to be performed once in a lifetime. So such guarantees should be provided beforehand before going to Hajj. Allah Ta'ala knows best.
Thank you, Sheikh.
And proclaim the pilgrimage among men. They will come to thee on foot and mounted on every camel, lean on account of journeys through deep and distant mountain highways.
If you have any questions for the show, send your email at k.r@oman-radio.gov.om at k.r@oman-radio.gov.om, knowing your religion, or send SMS to 90406. Don't forget to indicate k.r before sending your questions. And for your comments and suggestions, check out our Facebook, Knowing Your Religion.
The next question says, is it permissible to sacrifice an animal on behalf of a deceased relative in Eid al-Adha?
Well, there is no need to do that. Giving charity on behalf of a deceased is allowed. So if this is the intention, then yes, the person is going to be rewarded for that, and it is allowed. But we shouldn't, if we are asking about sacrificing an animal during Eid al-Adha, then we all know that this is a qurbani, this is a dhahiyya. And dhahiyya is an obligation, or it is a prophetic tradition that is required from the living Muslims. And it is an animal sacrifice from a family. So the family is asked to sacrifice one animal if they are capable to do so. It is not upon the individuals. Every single individual is not asked to give his sacrifice of an animal, but it is on behalf of all the family. But as I said, they can give charity, they can help the needy and poor in the society, either by the meat or by giving money or any other assistance on behalf of the deceased. And it has been proven that it is a rewarding act, even for the deceased. Allah Ta'ala knows best.
Thank you, Sheikh. The next question says, is my Hajj considered valid if I go straight to Arafah without having to spend a single night in Mina?
Well, if there is no excuse that caused him to do so, then I'm afraid that he has to slaughter an animal because of not spending the night of the 8th of Dhul Hijjah in the valley of Mina, because it is a must. Yes, it doesn't render his Hajj invalid, but it is an obligation according to the right opinion. Because Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam did so. He commanded his companions to imitate him during Hajj, and he said, "Khudhu anni manasikakum," take your rituals from me, indicating that they should imitate what he is doing, what he is saying, and this is what he did. So it is a must, although it doesn't render one's Hajj invalid if the person did not fulfill this obligation. But for the other nights, the nights of after the day of Arafah, the 10th, the 11th, the 12th, again, for every single day and night, the person who is without any excuse didn't spend the night in Mina, again he or she is asked to make the ransom. Allah Ta'ala knows best. But the only yes, I have to add also that the only permissibility is for the person who misses due to an excuse. Let's imagine that he was late due to any reason, and he couldn't catch the day of 8th of the Hajj, which pilgrims are spending in the valley of Mina, and in the early morning of the 9th, which is the day of Arafah, they do move from Mina to Arafah. So he missed due to that reasons, due to these sound reasons, or if he was, as I said, due to any unusual circumstances, he missed that day, he couldn't catch the day, and he arrived to Hajj on the 9th of the Hijjah at the Mount of Arafah. Then in this case, he is excused and no ransom is required. Allah Ta'ala knows best.
Thank you, Sheikh. The next question says, I performed my first Umrah 11 years back. After Tawaf, I cut my hair and could not perform Sa'i, lack of knowledge. Do I need to pay sacrifice? If yes, can I offer the sacrifice now?
Yes, he has to offer the sacrifice now. It should be sent to Makkah, and I'm afraid that he has to redo the Hajj because of leaving an obligation, and leaving this obligation altogether would render his Hajj invalid, particularly if we are talking about the obligatory performance of Hajj, the first time for him to perform Hajj. Because Sa'i, according to many scholars, is an obligation without which the Hajj is not accepted. So yes, because of not fulfilling this obligation, he is asked to do the ransom and to send to slaughter an animal there in Mecca, and at the same time he or she is asked to redo the Hajj once they are capable of redoing the Hajj. Allah Ta'ala knows best. Of course, there is an opinion that upon sending the animal for sacrifice, or asking somebody on their behalf to sacrifice the animal as a ransom there in Mecca, that this obligation is recovered and the Hajj is accepted. This is also a strong opinion, but the first opinion, which I strongly urge the questioner here to observe, is stronger. Allah Ta'ala knows best.
Thank you, Sheikh. The question says, which sandals should be worn during Umrah and Hajj?
Well, the answer is all sorts of sandals. If we are talking about sandals, if the questioner here is worried about them being, sandals being worn, then in this case, this doesn't harm the status of Ihram, because we couldn't imagine a sandal that is not worn, and particularly during the time of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the companions. Yes, they are available now in the market, that they are manufactured in a way like modeling, without any sewing in them. But this doesn't mean that they are even recommended. Every sandals are allowed, all shoes also are allowed, except the shoes that are covering the ankles. So in this case, if the person cannot find other shoes that are not covering the ankles, then they must cut the shoes underneath the ankles. Otherwise, all sorts of shoes are allowed, even the shoes that are containing a strap around the ankle. This is allowed. If they are going to cover the feet, this is also allowed. But what is not allowed are the shoes, the sort of shoes used by workers in oil and gas fields, as an example, that covers the ankles. Those are not allowed. Boots, absolutely. And in this case, the person performing Hajj is asked to cut them underneath the ankles. Allah Ta'ala knows best.
Thank you, Sheikh.
نستغفر الله ونتوب إليك 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 نستغفر الله ونتوب إليك.
If you have any questions for the show, send your email at k.r@oman-radio.gov.om at k.r@oman-radio.gov.om, knowing your religion, or send SMS to 90406 to 90406. Don't forget to indicate k.r before sending your questions. And for your comments and suggestions, check out our Facebook, Knowing Your Religion. Knowing Your Religion. Knowing Your Religion.
The next question is also about food, Sheikh.
Yes.
It says, can Muslims eat eels?
It is another debatable issue, and the reason of this is that, of course, let me first quote the opinion of the majority. The majority says that they are allowed. All sea fish, freshwater fish are allowed, according to the opinion of the majority. Some scholars say, particularly for eels, because they spend most of their life in fresh water. Yes. They do not go out. But some scholars say that for what is similar of wild animals, even if found in the sea, then they are not allowed. And eels look like snakes. So accordingly, those group of scholars say that they are not allowed. But this is, we do respect this opinion, but it is not a correct opinion. Because as I said, all animals found in fresh water or in seawater, the right opinion is that they are allowed, regardless of their names, regardless of how they look like. Because Islamic rulings are not based upon names. They are based upon facts. And this is based upon, in this case, upon authentic traditions in which we find that all animals found in the sea and also in fresh water are allowed to be consumed. Allah Ta'ala knows best.
Thank you, Sheikh. The next question says, is it mandatory to perform Umrah whenever you go to Makkah, or do you need to pay sacrifice?
No. For those who are traveling to Mecca and entering the holy city of Mecca, then they are asked to perform Umrah. But let's assume that somebody is going to Mecca only for a mere intention of conducting businesses. Then in this case, some scholars say they shouldn't. They are not asked to perform Umrah. because their intention is only to conduct their businesses. But I wouldn't imagine that a Muslim is visiting the holy city of Mecca and he would trade with others, and he wouldn't trade with Allah the Almighty. He wouldn't grasp the opportunity of being there and not performing Umrah. But those who are commuting, let's assume that they are commuting between Mecca and other cities, running their own or private affairs, running their businesses, then in this case they are not asked to perform Umrah every single time they do enter the borders of the sanctuary of Mecca. But it is only the first time. Otherwise, they are allowed to commute and enter the city of Mecca the other regular visits without performing Umrah. Allah Ta'ala knows best. Providing that they wouldn't, return back to their homes. Allah Ta'ala knows best.
The next question, Sheikh, is related to the question I just asked you. It says, my friend works for a mobile company and they have been sent in the Hajj season to maintain the facilities of the mobile phones for the Hujjaj. Now their visa was written very clearly that not for Hajj and Umrah, that they should not perform Hajj and Umrah. So if they perform Hajj and Umrah, will it be accepted because they have violated the rules of the...
Well, nobody can claim whether their performance is accepted or not, because this is in the hand of Allah the Almighty. But we can answer if they have did wrong or not, and they did. Allah the Almighty has commanded us to honor our contract when He says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu awfu bil uqud. O you who believe, honor your contracts, fulfill your deals and contracts. And if it was a condition made clearly in the agreement of contract between the two parties, then both parties should observe and maintain these conditions and these what have been explicitly articulated in the contract. So in this case, we cannot claim that their performance of Hajj is not accepted, but they did something wrong and they have to repent to Allah the Almighty. If there are any sort of liabilities towards the company to which they were working, then they should return back and to their companies and see what sort of liabilities that they have, or what sort of rights that they have violated by doing so. Also, I would advise my brothers and sisters in this case, if what they have performed is the obligatory Hajj, the first time performance of Hajj, that they should redo that particular Hajj, redo again the performance of Hajj, just to be at the safe side if they do have the means to do so, because while they did the first Hajj in violation of their contract, then, and we all know that Hajj, as I already said, is an obligation once in a lifetime. So one should perform Hajj with maintaining and observing all its conditions, all its requirements, so that he would gain all the spirituality required and all the gains associated with the performance of Hajj. One wouldn't and shouldn't attach to their performance of Hajj committing any wrongdoing, or committing any sin, or violating any contract, or any word that they have given to another party. If they do so, then they are asked to repent to Allah the Almighty, and if any of the conditions of Hajj is violated, then in this case accordingly they should see what sort of ransom or liabilities that they are eligible for. And at the same time, as I said, my advice to them is to redo their performance of Hajj. Allah Ta'ala knows best.
Thank you, Sheikh. The next question says, people are still confused in my masjid on what exactly to do when an imam's abolution gets invalidated during the congregational prayer. Some say the whole prayer should be repeated, and some say that people should continue praying with the next imam moving forward.
Well, the second opinion is the correct opinion, and it is also the easy opinion, particularly if we look at the congregational prayer that is highly recommended in Islam, and it should be protected. So in this case, the second imam appointed by the first imam, or even by the people performing their prayer, who would take the place of the first imam, whose abolution is invalidated due to any matter, will carry on performing the prayer and leading the congregation. It is true that some scholars claim that this is not the correct opinion, and they should recommence performing their prayer with the new imam. Other scholars classified particular invalidating matters of the abolution. So they say, as an example, that the nose bleeding is one of the matters that would invalidate one's abolution, but not the prayer itself. So for the matters that invalidates one's abolution, it can be carried on. I mean, the congregation can be carried on by the second imam. But for matters that invalidates one's prayer, then in this case they cannot carry on their prayer, even if they are led by a new imam. But as I said, the first opinion, which is the opinion adopted by many scholars, that they can carry on their congregational prayer led by a new imam, is the correct opinion. Allah Ta'ala knows best.
The next question says, is it lawful to consume beef bacon or any type of bacon?
No, of course it is not. Bacon is forbidden in Islam. So whether it is meat or beef or whatever products of bacon, they are forbidden explicitly, and there is no way that any products derived from bacon might be allowed in Islam.
Thank you very much, Sheikh Kahlan bin Nabhan Kharousi, for your time and knowledge, and we hope our listeners have benefited from today's session. See you next week, inshallah, from me, your host, Hatim Al-Absalam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.